Well, hi everyone. I'm Jarrett with a retro review of WCW Nitro from June 5th, 2000. The Go Home Nitro for Great American Bash, which I will be reviewing a little bit after this. Obviously, I have to try and do these in sequential order, and well, screwy finishes and a whole bunch of bullshit happened on this Russo-rific episode of Nitro. This wasn't very good. A less than 4 minute gauntlet match was the main event, and a lot of talking and a lot of talk of of Great American Bash 2000 being the landmark pay-per-view in WCW history. It was going to reshape WCW's future, and everything was just going to be all good and everything. And as we know from the company shutting down less than a year later, it was not all good. So how was this show? Well, I pretty much indicated that I didn't really like this, but here's why I didn't like it. One, starts off with Bischoff and Russo and company, the usual BS, mentions Luger's facial injury. Scott Steiner versus Vampiro is going to happen on the show, and Nash is going to be in a new blood gauntlet, where if any of the Millionaires Club interferes, or if Nash gets pinned, he loses his title shot against Jeff Jarrett at the pay-per-view. Yeah, and again, less than 4 minutes for this gauntlet match. And then Russo says leaving New York was a mistake. Yeah, Russo being on a wrestling program in any fashion was a goddamn mistake. And then says, Atlanta's a piece of shit town. I've never been to Atlanta, that's Russo's words. And it mentions John Rocker and stuff like that. You remember that whole controversial thing about John Rocker? Remember that? Google it, kids. It happened a number of years ago. And so we're going to have cage matches actually, but just one mentioned cage match of Ric Flair versus Vince Russo, because Russo wants to beat Flair's ass. And then Bischoff says he's going to challenge Terry Funk for the Hardcore Championship because he wants the title away from Terry Funk. And here's Goldberg. Goldberg's backstage, and Eric says, well, if you interfere in anything, if you don't play your cards right, I'll suspend you. And then we find out a little bit later whether he's going to do that or not. And then Russo calls him a punk. Bischoff's trying to talk him out of it. Please don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And then Russo antagonizes Goldberg enough to where Goldberg comes out, spears enough of the security people. And then more security people come down, see Goldberg in the ring, and say, nope, we're going to go this way instead. And they leave. So, yeah, and then backstage, everybody's yelling at everyone else, and Kidman wants to take out Horace, and then yells at Tori because Tori just decides to leave. We get Chuck Palumbo and Sean Stasiak versus Chronic, a rematch for the WCW Tag Team Championships, which Palumbo and Stasiak won when the DQ rule was waived, and, titles could change hands on disqualification. It was completely ridiculous. Oh, and it was Ernest Miller in charge, and speaking of Ernest Miller, he's here. He comes out, and eventually locks a variation of a chokehold on the ref and forces him to do the countout, so Stasiak and Palumbo retain by countout. Hooray, we're already off to the first screwy finish here, and then Kidman yells at Major Guns when she tries to defend Tori's honor, so then she goes there crying to the rest of the Misfits in action. And Booker T even says, G.I. Bro says, no, don't do that, don't cry, we're going to take out Kidman, but don't cry about it. Okay, cool, that was pointless. And then G.I. Bro and the Misfits in action and the Filthy Animals are all around ringside for G.I. Bro versus Kidman. G.I. Bro and Kidman might as well, Booker T. I'm just going to say Booker T. Might as well have been around ringside for all the good that this match did. It was like maybe 2 minutes at the most. Tori low blows Kidman, but Kidman might have been wearing a cup because he might have suspected it, but still falls to the bookend. These are the first two matches of the show, and sadly, things would only get worse. The matches didn't mean anything in WCW by this point. And you could argue right now that the matches don't really mean much of anything in current wrestling because of, the no crowds and all this kind of stuff, and we've seen everything 10,000 times over. But the Monday Night Wars, some episodes have aged pretty damn well, and there are some hot crowds. And then there's crowds like this where I'm pretty damn certain they had to paper the entire arena, or otherwise they might have drawn maybe 2,000 people. Like, there were WCW fans, but the ratings were tanking, the bottom was falling out of the goddamn company. That company just had nothing left. And so, oh, by the way, Kidman loses, and I think I've already said that. It's a melee afterwards, and it's terrible. It's fucking terrible. Of course, Disco was involved. And anytime Disco Inferno is involved in a segment, it is guaranteed to be terrible. We then get Eric Bischoff with Ernest Miller versus Terry Funk, Hardcore Championship, and despite Miller trying to help Bischoff, Funk chases him to the back. And then suddenly Miss Hancock comes out. And then Kimberly yells at her saying, you're cutting into my TV time. Mike Awesome's also with Kimberly. And she takes a clipboard. She takes Miss Hancock's clipboard, Kimberly does, and hits her in the back. And then Miss Hancock calls her a fat ass like about 5 times because she learned from Scott Steiner, or Scott Steiner got the inspiration from her to continue calling them fat asses. And if you know what I'm talking about, well, Steiner didn't make a whole lot of sense on promos, but he loved calling people fat asses. Hailing from Dunkin' Donuts and all that stuff. So, we're going to get a match. Nope, we're not going to get a match. We're going to get a mixed tag a little bit later. Funk carries Bischoff back to the ring in one of those little, trash rolly things. I don't actually know what the fuck you call it. I used one of those at the, when I worked at the movie theater, and infinitely better one here than the one that I had. But anyway, so suddenly Russo says, you know what, Johnny the Bull, Big Vito, go out there and take care of this. So they attack Funk, they lay him out, they hit a kendo stick into the trash can lid, into his groin, and then Bischoff is brought onto, topped on Funk. 1, 2, 3. Eric Bischoff is a new hardcore champion. Hooray! It's somehow worse than Vince McMahon being WWE champion. But not even the worst champion that we would get in WCW in 2000. And then Scott Steiner stumbles, talks about taking his freaks to Space Mountain or whatever, or, all this. He was talking about sex. He was talking about the booty. Boy, I sounded really white there. Vampiro comes down, and we get a bit of a match that isn't really much of anything. We get a chair shot. We get an announcer's table slam. Even though it looked like he maybe got Vampiro a foot above the table still collapsed. It must be made out of, the worst material ever. A chair that has Scott Steiner, and then, so Medusa gets involved and, crossbodies Vampiro. Then he takes the gas can and the blowtorch because he is trying to, set people on fire to build to the Human Torch match against Sting. Crap, that is on this upcoming pay-per-view. I hate myself already for watching this. And then he threatens to set a woman on fire because WCW 2000 showed how much Russo had respect for women. And Sting makes a save, and Vampiro loses to Steiner Recliner. Goldberg versus Tank Abbott, and then Rick Steiner comes out and, makes it uneven and everything. They take him out, or, they try to beat him up and everything, but they can't keep him down. Nash then comes through the crowd. I don't know how they managed to not see where the fuck he was. I mean, he is almost 7 feet tall. And then takes Rick Steiner out of the ring. Spear, jackhammer. So all that build-up with Tank Abbott and Goldberg is done. Goldberg beats him literally with 2 moves. It was absolutely fucking hilarious. To be fair, that's what Tank Abbott's wrestling career should have been. So we think of Kimberly saying nothing, yet trying to say a lot. And then Jeff Jarrett versus Sting. So they have a match, and this isn't for the title, but Sting wins with a sunset flip. And because it was never actually said for the title, it was never said it was for the title, but it wasn't not said. It doesn't make sense. They never indicated as such, one way or the other. So he thinks he won the title. Bischoff's like, no, you didn't. You didn't win the title, but congratulations on your win. And then Sting gets Jeff Jarrett's guitar, whacks Jarrett over the head, and he falls off the ramp. That's a great way to take care of your talent right there. Mike Awesome and Kimberly versus Miss Hancock and somebody. But Miss Hancock says, hey, before I beat you up and destroy your face and stuff like that, you need to sign this so I'm not legally responsible for what I do to you. And Kimberly's like, fine, I'll sign your little thing and everything. She didn't read the fine print. It was reneging on the restraining order. I've reneged on this restraining order and everything. And all of a sudden, DDP is allowed to get within 500 feet of Kimberly, and we get a mixed tag match. It was absolutely nothing. Miss Hancock distracts. Diamond Cutter for 3. Yay! There we go. Diamond Cutter on Mike Awesome, by the way. Not on Kimberly, because Kimberly wasn't really worth much of anything in wrestling. And then Bischoff and Horace, they call out Hogan. NWO Hollywood Hulk Hogan is here, as opposed to Happy-Go-Lucky Hollywood Hulk Hogan. So yeah, he said, I said Hulk Hogan wouldn't wrestle. I didn't say anything about Hollywood Hulk Hogan. So, it was supposed to be just one cage match. Well, no, Hogan, using his political stroke that he never used, his creative control that he never used, ever at all, to face Horace Hogan in a steel cage match. And he puts a chair on his face and does a leg drop. Ouch. I mean, that's after some action. 1, 2, 3. Then Kidman attacks, but then he gets tossed through a table. By the way, Hell in a Cell style, rather. So there was enough room to move around the ring. And then Russo versus Ric Flair in a cage match. Poor Rick having to work with Vince Russo. Eventually David Flair shows up even after Russo tried, but he got the shit beat out of him. David shows up. He gets shit beat out of him also. Russo gets a ladder and then gets a part open in the cage. Is like going to try to escape and then gets dropped down, onto the ring mat. Too damn bad. And then Russo also gets stopped by Reed from escaping the cage. It was kind of hilarious. And then he no-sells the figure four. And then suddenly the red blood of the new blood drops down on Flair. And from that height, even a liquid might have actually hurt because they hit Robinson. I think it might have legit knocked him loopy. And then David Flair with this pool of, fake blood and everything around. David puts figure four on him. Russo pins him. 1, 2, 3. Pins him in the broadest stroke possible. Whew. Boy, that was bad. I put the video up on my Twitter, by the way, if you want to check that out. Depending on when you see this review, though, you might have to scroll back a little bit. And then we get the New Blood Gauntlet. Now, mind you, this is what they were building up to and what they hyped up and, plugged in the beginning, and the announcers have been plugging. This is less than 4 minutes. So it's Kevin Nash versus Disco Inferno, Chris Candido, Big Vito, Johnny the Bull, Chuck Palumbo, Vampiro, Mike Awesome, a whole bunch of others and everything. I'm sure I missed a bunch of them because they had a bunch of people on the stage. He pins Disco Inferno with a sidewalk slam immediately. So for what Disco was worth, which is absolutely nothing. Disco Inferno's a goddamn idiot. So basically what happened, you know what? This is all I gotta say right here. That's the end of that. So here's what basically happened. He hits a jackknife on one guy, and the referee counts him down despite Nash not covering the guy. He does it again with the jackknife, and the referee does the same goddamn thing. He's counting pinfalls without anybody actually being covered. Because that's how little time they left for this, and that's how little thought they put in on this. It was Slick Johnson, by the way, the referee from, TNA, most famously from TNA, even though he did get his start in WCW. He was the animated bald one who would always go, "2," and he would always do like this and everything. And it was amusing the first few times, and it got really annoying. So yeah, Nash ends up inadvertently winning the gauntlet because, yes, nobody on the Millionaires Club could interfere, but Goldberg helped. Goldberg isn't part of the Millionaires Club. There's your loophole. So Goldberg helps, and Nash just wins. He just wins after everybody had attacked, everybody had done a melee attack. And, yeah, then, so Nash still has a shot for the title, and then Bischoff says, "Oh yeah, by the way, on Thunder, I'm going to suspend you, Goldberg. I'm not going to suspend you now, I'm going to suspend you on Thunder." So people got a reason to tune in. It's fucking stupid. It's fucking goddamn stupid. The show was a goddamn atrocity. It was so fucking bad. Let me know what the fuck you think, because I cannot believe that WCW was still in existence by this point, because the shows were just fucking rotten, because Vince Russo couldn't write good TV, or probably couldn't do anything right. So anyway, agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm Jarrett. I'll see you soon.